The structure that we have right now is about the same. We have lost a few dog foster coaches, so that's something that we're kind of working on recruiting for at the moment. We're also in the process of beginning a cat foster coach program, but it's in the early stages. It just never came to fruition with how busy we got during kitten season. The foster supervisor, Caroline, who is on this call, she also has another staff member that reports to her that technically is not foster related, but she does report to the foster supervisor. That position is called a cat care coordinator. So just for some context, so that person is responsible for our TNR program, and she oversees movement of all the cats within the building. So if a cat comes in, she'll assess it, determine if it's TNR eligible, or, if we need to place it up for adoption, things like that. But as far as the foster staff is concerned, we do currently have 2 cat foster coordinators and 2 dog foster coordinators. The dog foster coordinator, the second position, was maybe filled within the last month or so, maybe the last 2 months. But so yeah, we're fully staffed in the foster department.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So your foster supervisor, does the foster supervisor do nothing but foster, or do they do other things as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, she's just primarily over the foster department. So of course she helps with like program development, and then, more like one-off situations, like if, we need her to speak with a foster parent or things like that. So she does a little bit of putting out fires as well. And she's on the call too. So
cool.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Hey, do you want to give us a little overview of what you do?
Yeah, so basically, like Annie said, I mainly, I'm in charge of program development as well as like putting out any fires within the program. A lot of what I do is just like overseeing the day-to-day aspects of everything, but also like trying to handle bigger picture stuff. Like we're trying to grow our foster coach program. And then also trying to, expand our dog foster program and get systems in place to recruit more fosters, and then place more of like our medically and behaviorally challenged dogs into foster homes at a quicker rate than we currently are. And then along with that, like Annie said, I manage like our cat foster coordinator and kind of oversee, our TNR and basically all the cat stuff.
Cool. Awesome. So you guys, from our data for the first 6 months of this year, were one of the shelters who had the highest number of pets placed in foster, about a little over 1,500 pets in foster. But you are the shelter with the highest percent of your intake placed in foster. You guys are at about 56%, which is pretty amazing. Questions. So do the foster coordinators, like your dog, your cat foster coordinators or your dogs, do they specialize in different things, or are they doing, are they both kind of like doing the same, like overlapping? How does that usually work?
They're kind of, what we have now is like a split schedule of 4-10. So one of them kind of takes the first half of the week and the other takes the second half, and then they have a little bit of overlap.
Oh, cool.
On Wednesdays. Since our second dog foster coordinator is so new, she's still being trained and kind of learning her role. As far as like in the cat foster program, they don't have like anything specifically assigned to them, but they're pretty good about like splitting up tasks and working on things individually, kind of depending on like what their strengths are.
That makes sense. Very much so. Tell me a little about medical. Like, are your foster coordinators doing vaccines? Like, who does what with? How does the medical part work?
So they are responsible, for contacting foster parents and, getting them in for boosters and preventatives. They can administer like boosters and preventatives. If they're really tied up, we also have our intake team who's kind of backup for that. So they sort of can help step in whenever necessary. And then in Georgia, a vet has to administer rabies. So if we had like a rabies, a vet would have to do that. But all of our foster coordinators are able to like administer vaccines and meds and everything.
Oh, cool. Okay. So clinic, so just real quick, what would clinic be responsible for? Mainly, just a couple of bullet points, maybe.
Yeah, so they would be looking at pets that had any sort of concern that you know, a coordinator wouldn't be responsible for, like, in other words, something that a vet tech or a vet would need to look at. So common things would be like upper respiratory infection, you know, if an animal has diarrhea, or, you know, maybe a kitten is lethargic. They're going to handle any sort of, you know, non-emergency and occasionally emergency situations with pets in foster care. We also have an emergency vet partner that's open 24/7 that we will send animals to after hours for anything that is more urgent or life-threatening. And sometimes animals will go there during the day if it's something that's kind of beyond the scope of what we're able to treat in shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, who's responsible for the transportation of those? The foster parents or the?
It depends on the situation, but generally the foster parent. If it's a situation where it's a cat or a dog that's been in foster care and maybe it came into the clinic for treatment and it was staying overnight, we wouldn't, you know, have the foster come and get the animal from the shelter and take it to the clinic. We'd probably have a staff member or a volunteer do that transport just for convenience sake.
That makes sense. How about your adoptions team?
Yeah, so they, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, what parts are they responsible for?
So they help out with foster a lot. They finalize, you know, obviously foster adoptions. That is something that they exclusively do. So the foster coordinators don't do the finalizing of any sort of adoption for a foster, whether or not the foster intended to adopt or not initially. Okay. We also have the Foster to Forever, what we call our Foster to Forever program, which is essentially a 2-week trial adoption where the animal's in foster care with the adopter, and then as you know, the adoption is finalized at the 2-week mark. So they're responsible for that, and we do have a fair amount of animals that go to foster specifically under that program, or as FTAs, Foster to Adopt. So they manage all of those as well.
Okay, all right. So they're two different ones. Mixing them up. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and Foster to Adopt is just foster for animals that haven't been altered yet. Foster to Forever is for animals that are already altered, and it's just a 2-week trial adoption.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. And then community programs team?
Their involvement is more minimal. When an animal comes back from foster care, they manage the intake for that animal, so they'll reactivate it in our system and have the foster take the animal back around to our back of house intake team for processing. They also oversee the what we have is the Friendly Finder program. So it's a like short-term foster program for animals that are on stray hold. So they manage that for the duration of the stray hold, and if the person who has the animal wants to continue fostering, then that transfers over to the foster coordinators and they become the point of contact. But up until that point, the community programs team is responsible for reaching out to the finder, checking in with them, seeing how the animal's doing, and finding out if they want to convert to a long-term foster, or if they want to adopt, or if they want to bring the animal back to the shelter.
Oh, cool. Okay, that makes sense.
Ellie, is stray hold foster common? That's the first time I've heard it mentioned explicitly. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's actually what we're going to do our TED Talk on. But yeah, we do it a lot. It's something that people are really excited to do. So it's been a successful program for us.
How about other shelters though? Are other people implementing that? Have you heard?
We definitely are pushing. We're definitely pushing for it, Betsy, with a lot of shelters as part of intake the placement as well.
At HRA, we just encourage, if someone finds an animal, they keep the animal. We don't even say it's a foster. They just found the animal. We keep a found report, and we just let them know if an owner should come forward that we would connect them with the owner. And then you know, if they decide to keep the animal, great. If not, they can rehome the animal, or they can, if it's not working out in their home, they bring it back to us and we'll find a solution. But we always ask if they would. They say, I found this dog outside. We'll say, cool, you want to keep it?
I've heard of a few of those programs, but it seems like several of the organizations that I've talked to, locally, animal control, it's sort of like once the pet gets in the system, it's a little bit stuck, so that if we take it there, if we don't take it there, that's fine. They'll work with us. But when we take it there, then it becomes like a system pet. And yeah, that's really cool. I love that. That's neat. You guys are so cool.
Awesome. Okay. And does this look basically like, or is there anything missing on here?
Let's see.
How do you guys support like overnight emergency calls? Who does that? Is that your foster team exclusively, or do you share that responsibility with other team members?
So the foster coordinators each have their own cell phone for emergency purposes. So they'll be the first point of contact and get those calls. And then generally they'll reach out to me or the shelter director or, maybe the vet to check in and see, like, if they're not sure that it's a true emergency, they'll use us as a way to verify that. And then one of us, so the shelter director or myself or our vet will call, or Caroline will call Village Vets, the partner that we use, and essentially, tell them the visit's been approved. But the initial point of contact goes through the foster coordinators on those cell phones, and they hand those off to each other based upon when they're working.